Welcome, everybody. I'm Madhu Vishwanathan, and this is our last broadcast for this offering of the Coursera course. Before we go to the issues for today, I speak for the team and having a heavy heart as we come close to the time to say goodbye. It's been a wonderful experience. We've been overwhelmed with the commitment to learning, the sincerity, and the dedication in your contributions to discussions and in your work. When we view posters using our frameworks to represent solutions in the most challenging of conditions, it's truly moving and humbling. We will have an announcement soon on how we hope to sustain this unique community that is formed here. This is also our first Coursera offering. Although we piloted the entire course late last year, we are grateful to you for your patience as we sorted out a lot of issues. Thanks to your feedback, we will improve on this offering. We hope to offer the course periodically so others can benefit, or so you can retake a specific element such as the project track. I want to say a little bit about where I am personally in terms of subsistence marketplaces. I started out talking about how we have created synergies between research, teaching, and social initiatives, which really started almost 17 years ago. I get a sense of satisfaction from our research and our efforts to build a community of researchers, our course offerings, and our efforts to share them with educators and students around the world. But the aspect that is closest to my heart and also the slowest is actual positive impact in communities. One way in which we think about what we do here is to give people who have not had a chance. Foremost, this means people living in subsistence communities. It also means students like you in terms of exposure to some of our insights and experiences. And it also means researchers and practitioners interested in this arena. In fact, we begin and end our course in speaking about how challenging working in these contexts are. But no matter how challenging, they don't compare to the challenges that people living in poverty face in their day-to-day life. Therefore, it's heartwarming to hear of stories of positive impact. I have a bit of news to share in this regard. Starting soon, 1 day a week will be devoted to marketplace literacy education in the Maasai community we work with in Tanzania. This is an important step in going beyond piloting and is happening thanks to our partner there, Oikos East Africa. I thought a little bit of word association would be useful today in terms of words and phrases that come to mind when thinking of subsistence marketplaces. Humility is one, the notion that I don't have the answers but can learn from before designing for. An unrelenting focus on actual impact. That means it's not just the way you get there, but to achieve the end as well. There are many steps along the way that feel good, but have they really resulted in doing good? For instance, we can speak of entities we work with and discussions we are having and presentations we are making. These are all important means, but we need to have this unrelenting focus on reaching people in need. The notion of doing it and how corrupting that can be in and of itself. We need to keep our egos out of things and focus on the larger purpose. Yes, how we go about what we do and what we choose to do is intertwined with who we are. In this regard, we can think of purpose in terms of what we think we should do, passion in terms of what we want to do or love to do, and proficiency in terms of what we are good at. If all three come together in your work in subsistence marketplaces, it is rare, but it is ideal. Again, you have to chart your own journey, and we hope that learning experiences such as this stay with you in some way as you find your own path. Not someone else's path, but your own path. Listening and learning is another phrase. I recall a young man who asked how he could help and how much money he should take before traveling to subsistence marketplaces. I told him not to take any money, but to listen and learn and see where he thinks he can make a difference. Learning by doing is another phrase. Going down a road for a bit to see if the path is viable and it's for you. Emotional intelligence or emotional quotient is another phase. EQ is about how we get things done. Critical here in so many ways. Implementation, implementation, implementation. A word repeated several times. So much of what we do is about implementation in settings where there is deprivation and lack of infrastructure and institutional mechanisms. There are many ideas, but an overwhelming majority of the work is in good execution. Depth will lead to breadth. I mean this in the context of scaling or increasing the reach of your work. Working in one context and understanding it deeply is a great way to fail small, understand issues, and then reach wider audiences. Too often, the notion of scale is brought in early and leads to initiatives being a mile wide and an inch deep. Knowing the consumer is not enough. It's the individual, it's the community, it's the larger context. An unrelenting focus on economic sustainability is critical, as without this, there is no entity. Related to this is the idea of having a soft heart but a tough mind in order to make a lot of decisions. Sometimes it is useful to complicate the revenue model, create more entanglements so the people involved have multiple incentives. And then, of course, there are some sad realities in this context. Some lives are cheaper than others. An unacceptable truth, which is why so many of us do what we do. We often leave out the neediest. They are the hardest to reach. We have to try harder. Let us now go to the questions for today. And I'm going to turn things over to Norma.
Good morning. We have seen some questions from students regarding quiz results. And I want to let you know that the quiz results will be available for you this week. The course ends on Monday, but it doesn't mean that the course is going to be closed. There will be still opportunities if you want to come in and look at the material. The course will remain open. All the courses from the University of Illinois in the Coursera system are open for people to come and see, and then they close when they are going to be reoffered. And we don't know when this course will be reoffered this year, the exact dates, the announcements will be made, but I want to reiterate what Madhu just said about the possibility of coming back and redoing part of the course, like the project phase, if you didn't have the chance to do it this time. I also want to respond to someone that wanted to know if the system is, why is it, if it is a trick to put the true and false questions in different order. That's not a trick, it's just the system does it randomly. We don't have any power on that, and the reason is because they want to make sure that people read before they answer. It's not an automatic response. I also want to thank you all those that volunteered to do more than what they needed. For example, captioning in your own language. That is a great help. And the people in Coursera at the University of Illinois will be checking those captionings and putting them up if they consider that they are reflecting what the video is saying. I also want to say that we will ask permission to link to all the final projects in our social network page that you will have access in a week. The project finals have been moving, interesting, and I am really moved by your interest in helping your community. And then I also want to say that for those that in those countries that celebrate Women's Day, in Subsistence marketplaces, we have wonderful stories of women that make a difference. I want to celebrate with you that day, and I want to wish Happy Women's Day to all those that participate in this broadcast and in this course. We have two people joining us, and one is Luis from Honduras, and the other is Malik. If you have any questions, Luis, Malik, welcome.
Actually, sir, I am from India, and I want to know, means in the Indian context, it is very difficult to convince people about anything product you are designing. So, how to convince people?
You may convince whom? Who are you talking about, Malik?
And I want to convince the people of rural, because there is a water is very salty and it is a high in fluoride content. So I was thinking about the solar panel where you can install it, and that's because it's a desert area in Western Rajasthan, so they can use it easily because it's very difficult to use any aquaguard, anything else. And people are only doing agriculture.
No, Malik, that's a great question. And I want to start off by saying that when I think about myself, right, and when I think of environmental sustainability and changes in my own behavior, I am so reluctant to change. And I have so much resources, but I'm so reluctant to change. And the reason I mentioned that is when you then think of people who are really in the urgency of making ends meet, having a good meal at the end of the day, and so on, it's quite natural, right, to think about the resistance you would get. But I'm arguing that it is no more resistance than you would get with any audience. But having said that, I think when we think about some of the issues that people face, both due to low literacy and due to low income, we talked about things like concrete thinking and pictographic thinking. I think it's so important to show people. So it's so important to show people the fluoride in the water, and I know that's not easy to do, but any way that it can be brought out and to show people some of its effects, because that is a complex cause and effect relationship. I think it's also to show people a little beyond by having solutions that have a short-term yield. People don't necessarily have 2 years to try to find out that this is going to be the impact and so on. So I think it's very important to look at whether you can show a short-term yield, perhaps with a few households and so on. And I know this is not an easy issue, Malik, because we are actually working on the same issue in Tanzania with water, and we've done a number of projects with water. There are a whole bunch of issues. There are a whole bunch of perceptions as to what tastes better. There are perceptions as to what is impurity and so on. And it's not like those perceptions are any different from perceptions I have as a customer. Some of them are accurate, some of them are not. And so I think there is a huge challenge there for you to try to concretize the problems with the water and to try to concretize your own solution. I do want to, again, re-emphasize the idea of short-term yield. That's very important, so people see a benefit to what they're doing. This is a very interesting issue for us because we have been looking at this both in India and Tanzania. And if there is a way we can share some of our learning with you, Malik, we'd be very happy to do that. But I think it's a great question. What you're basically saying is, how do you try to convince people about problems that are not visible to them and therefore don't take on a huge magnitude compared to all the other things they face? And then how do you try to convince them of the solution and the fact that the solution is working? I think it's a great question, Malik. Well, let's see if there's a way that we can stay in touch on this, and if we can share some of the things that we have learned with you. And I hope you join our community as well. We'll have more information on that. Thank you, Malik.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
And, I was in a recent interview in a setting, Malik, where it was heartbreaking to hear about the 2 hours each morning and evening the family spent on going and getting the water. But what was worse was the fluoride content in the water. And I had this feeling that, wow, I mean, this is how much they struggle to get the water. And as it turns out, it is so harmful for them as well. So this is such a fundamental issue. I think when you think of water, sanitation, and so on, these are the foundational issues. And I'm really pleased to hear that you are taking on this challenge, and I wish you all success. Any other questions, Malik?
Yes, sir. Actually, I am a student of IRMA, and one of my friend, my batchmate, he was thinking about his new startup, and it is the free first aid training in rural areas of India. So we are trying to start it from Anand only in Gujarat. So actually, its main revenue model is means people won't pay in rural. So he want to earn money from urban areas, means he want to give training to corporate and an institution and college where student studies, so that he can take money from them, and the same money he can utilize for giving first aid training to rural peoples. So how to initiate it? Any ideas?
Let me answer at a general level, Malik. I am a very big believer in the value equation, whether it is asking for support or anything else, and that value equation applies to our beneficiaries as well. In other words, to clearly talk to people about, look, this is what you're giving us. You're giving us your time, and this is what we hope to give you in return. And I think that's true of companies, it's true of people and donors. I think the more you can very clearly state the value equation and saying that this is, the amount of support we're asking, and this is exactly how it will go and translate into, the number of people educated and so on. And I also think, it's very important to focus on what's different about what you're doing. How are you building on what's already being done, and how are you doing it better? From that point of view, I really look at this whole arena as the best of business and the best of the social world. We really should learn from wherever we can. And from that point of view, what is unique and different about this particular education? How was it created? How does it address needs? Is there evidence you can show through a pilot that, yes, this is how it addresses needs? What's the impact? I think these are very important for donors to know about. And then the value equation of, this is the kind of support we expect from you, but this is what you get in return. These are the number of people educated. This is what they will do with the education. Just following through on that, I think, is very important. And again, it's like all of us, right? I mean, in everything we do, we value certain things, we invest effort. And it's the same thing for a donor, I believe, in terms of laying it out. The other thing that's very important here is the follow-up. And it's not even follow-up because of what others think about the organization, which is extremely important. It's follow-up because of who we are. And so it's so important to follow up and then, take that donation very seriously. That money was given with a noble intent. And so to follow up and say, this is where we are, this is what we have done with your donation, that I think is very important. As well. So those are some things that come to mind. I'm sorry my answer is general because my understanding of exactly what you're doing is also fairly general. Okay, let's see if Luis is back.
Has a question, yes. Luis. He says, what do you foreshadow for the future of subsistence marketplaces?
Luis, great question. I think certainly moving subsistence marketplaces towards being more sustainable marketplaces is a very important goal. But when we think about that, it's also progress. For example, if you look at the urban poor in some of the settings around the world, some have moved from a kerosene stove to a gas stove. That is progress. They're still in subsistence, but that's progress. And so seeing that kind of progress in terms of the household lives, seeing that kind of progress in terms of the infrastructure around people, in terms of the institutional mechanisms they can depend on for their daily life is certainly a fervent hope. But then there is another issue as well that we need to be very watchful of, which is the environment, and particularly the local environment. We've talked about this, and for people living in subsistence, this is a very immediate issue. You can look at long-term drought in parts of Africa. You can look at so many different issues that people face, whether it's plastic and so on. And so I think they are going to be deeply impacted by some of the larger environmental issues. They are going to be least able to adapt because of the lack of resources they have. And so this is a huge issue out there. And as we adapt, as we mitigate, as we talk about a lot of different things, I think it's so important to keep that in mind. As you know, I use a slide where I show women in Mozambique looking for firewood, and we talk about social, economic, and environmental sustainability. This actually became a real situation when I met a woman who was selling firewood in Tanzania in a marketplace, and she was very apologetic. And she said, I didn't cut any trees. I just picked up the wood that had fallen. But I'm very poor and I need this money. And I was asking her, how long does it take you now? She said, a few years ago, a couple of hours. Today it takes me 5 or 6 hours to get the firewood. I think we have to keep that person in mind and people like that in mind as we design solutions. What is it they are trying to sustain? Language, culture, and so many livelihoods and so many other things. And it actually goes back to Malik's question about water as well, that, what is it that people are trying to sustain? How do we understand how they use water and store water and view water and where it fits culturally? Unless we have that understanding, we can claim to be creating sustainable solutions, but it's really not grounded in people's day-to-day reality. I'm not going to accept a solution that's not grounded in an understanding of the way I live my life. So why should I expect somebody who's at the bottom of the economic pyramid to do the same thing? So I think, to me, the environmental issue is looming very large. And of course, when you think of poverty itself and subsistence marketplaces, certainly making a dent in that issue, is in the immediate future. Any other questions?
Luis says that he has been an honor to be learning from you, and he said your order, and you're welcome to Honduras.
Luis, the feeling is sincerely mutual. It's been a privilege to work with you. It's been a privilege to work with students who are so sincere about learning for its own sake. That's why people are on Coursera, and we feel so humbled that you found what we had to say worthwhile and useful. And I will certainly be looking to visit you in Honduras. It's a country where I'm sure I'll learn a lot. So I'm certainly looking for that. Thank you so much for your invitation, Luis. You are very welcome. Do stay in touch, everybody, and we will try to figure out a way to have the information about the community that we will try to sustain very soon. And in the meanwhile, we want to thank you again. And let me turn to Norma. Any other issues?
No, I want to thank you all, and I also want to say that for future offerings of the course, we will invite those that have participated in the course to see if they're interested in helping as community TAs, as we have had our community TAs on campus. So we will keep in touch, and I hope you maintain your contact and your news about your progress in our Facebook page, that you will get news in a week.
Thank you very much, Norma. It's been a privilege to work with you. Thank you for your tireless efforts. I just wanted to say, as Norma just mentioned, when we get into things like this, when we look at problems like this, it's for a lifetime. And so we will stay in touch, and we will learn from you, and I hope we can be of help to you as well. And so on behalf of our entire team, we thank you for making this experience what it is, and we wish you the very best in all your endeavors. Goodbye.